Hi, friends. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the Lash Extension podcast. I'm Erin.
And I'm Tress. And today we have an episode lined up for you that is all about going solo as a lash artist versus being an employee and how to identify which one is right for you. And I think that Erin and I have a really unique way of discussing this because we have opposite expertise.
Yeah, we've both experienced the opposite sides of this conversation. I have never been an employee for somebody. I have always, since day one, been my own business owner and been solo, and vice versa. Tress, have you ever been solo on your own, or have you
I have.
mainly been an employee?
Yep. I've been solo, but I haven't had employees under me solo. It was just like my own thing. And I actually discovered that I didn't love it. And so I have a lot of experience as an employee or as a team member or a contractor. And so I'm going to kind of rope all of those things into one today for the sake of like making it easy. But I've had so many conversations with students and lash artists and business owners that are talking to me about where they're at and why it is currently so incredibly difficult for them to be in that place. So I love that we are talking about this today because I think we're both really passionate about the fact that one is not better than the other. It is literally about what is best for you.
Yeah, there's a place for everybody, and we need both in this world. And there are people in this world that are phenomenal in both of these places, these placements. And I think that that's beautiful.
Yeah, but often I find that the person who is very enthusiastic and very content being a business owner is not content being an employee.
Right.
And vice versa.
Yeah. Where their strong suit is where they should be.
So from me to you, if you are considering being an employee or considering not being a solopreneur anymore, there is no shame in that. There is no reason for you to feel down or bad about yourself for that. There are strengths that you have that are different, and we want to speak to both of those today so that you can get really solidified and grounded in what's going to be best for you moving forward in your career, or possibly be able to make a decision on where you want to move into next instead of feeling like you need to be one thing or the other because that's kind of what this industry tells you need.
Okay, so we actually mapped out some of the traits that we thought would be really awesome in both areas, whether you want to become an employee or independent contractor, or you want to go straight into being a solopreneur or renter, and kind of what we thought character traits of each personality might be. And obviously this is just, there are other attributes too that maybe we didn't write down. So take this, with a grain of salt from our experience. But so I'm going to talk about the employer or like the owner side of it, because again, our areas of expertise are in different areas here. So one of the attributes that I think that make a really, really good solopreneur, an individual renter straight out the gate, would be if they initially are a problem solver. If you are able to find solutions instead of feeling overwhelmed when a challenge arises for you, I think that that is a great attribute to knowing that going straight into being your own solopreneur would be potentially a good route for you. There are naturally always going to be challenges that arise, and if you jump straight into problem solving mode, in my opinion, that's a really good characteristic of a owner and a leader.
Yeah, and you brought that up, and it's funny because that's not one of the things that I necessarily would have brought up if I was building this list alone, but we put it at the top of the list because that's how important it is. So sometimes that comes with more life experience. Sometimes that comes with some more trial and some more hardships that you've maybe been through, but being able to be that problem solver and focusing on solutions before overwhelm is definitely critical when you are running your own show.
Yeah. And next is if you have struggles with authority, or getting directions from authority, I think that would be a great option. I am that person through and through. I am not a good employee for that reason. I also struggled as a child for that reason, taking authority from other people and really giving into, when someone tells me what to do and I just blindly follow it. For me, I have always struggled with that. I wanted to make my own decisions, build and do anything that I wanted to do without reporting to somebody or without having anybody else maybe tell me, you can't do that. Simply put, that was something that I struggled with. On the opposite end of that, there are people that are incredibly good at receiving direction, and they almost want direction to be given to them moving forward. And I think that there's a distinction to be made there. The next thing is major creativity and vision, and the ability to be disciplined and follow through and execute the creativity and the vision that you have created in your mind. There are people that are incredible visionaries, and they might be able to think so many and build so many different ideas, but the execution of those ideas is where I want to put emphasis on that point there.
Yeah, because you're talking to me. I love being creative. I come up with ideas all day long. I have 5 or 6 pages in my notebook just from being here the last 2 days of like ideas of things that I want to bring to a table and be able to like work out with people. But if I had to look at those things and go, okay, now I have to execute them completely on my own, and I have to follow a structure and a schedule and get it done start to finish, I would be like, maybe I don't want to do that now. Like it's the follow through on my own. That's hard. And I like structure and accountability and being part of a team because of that.
And you're incredible at it.
Thank you.
You're really incredible at it. Like, I could give you an idea right now and you could be like A, B, C, D through Z, every step on how to get there and execute that. So the next point is we are all really creative and we all have really big visions. A lot of us are in the beauty industry for the sake of it being a artistry, right? And so a lot of us are big visionaries. To me, what distinguishes whether being a solopreneur or a employee would be better for you is if you have the discipline to be able to execute on your creative visions. And for you, you are phenomenal at writing things down and putting them together like that. Do you want to explain that?
Sure. So I love being the visionary. I love generating. I'm an idea generator. I know a lot of us are. I love being able to create something out of thin air and create a concept and run with it. But I also like the structure of having people around me to hold me accountable to it. Because if it's only on me to be able to have the vision, have the creativity, do the thing, execute the plan, and stay on like a time schedule only for myself, only holding myself accountable, like that is not my forte. And in order to be a business owner, you have to be able to be the one that envisions it and creates it and sticks to it and follows it through without anybody in the world holding you accountable.
Yep. Yeah. So accountability there is like a really big piece. The next part is capital. Simply put, capital, revenue, savings. I say that loosely. I just mean, do you have the flexibility in your current income or savings to open and sustain being on your own right now? I will say I did not open. I was like I mentioned, I've been on my own since day one. I have been a renter since day one. And I will say that I didn't have a huge savings. I honestly don't think that I had any savings, if I'm being honest. I worked paycheck to paycheck. I was 20 years old and I worked a 9 to 5, and I gradually minimized my hours with my 9 to 5 as my clientele grew with lashes. And eventually I was able to stop my 9 to 5, quit my 9 to 5 because my clientele had grown to a point that it was able to sustain me and my bills. So when I say the capital, the savings, the flexibility in your income to become a renter, even though I only had a 9 to 5 job and I was trickling in clients at first, I had the flexibility within my 9 to 5 paycheck to have a $200 a month rent that I knew with my 9 to 5 job I could cover. So you don't necessarily need to have, a huge savings, a huge revenue margin before you can become a renter. But are you able to have the flexibility in your current income or your current financial status to be able to be on your own right now? And that's totally okay if you would rather be an employee at first until you feel comfortable enough to rent on your own, or it might not be for people in that direction either.
Yeah. So I would just like to call out something here that we see happening in the industry more and more and more. And the fact is, the lash industry really, really started booming at the same time that salon suites started booming. And so the idea was a lash artist can go to beauty school, go for 4 or 6 or maybe 10 months, depending on which program you decide you need to take or what your state requires. And you can be your own business the day that you walk out of there if you sign a lease to rent your own place. And I think we all know that beauty school does not equip us to be a business owner, and that's conception. So when you say that you need the flexibility of income, you could narrow it down even farther and just say you need the income. You don't come out of the gate with a clientele ready to go. And I think that's kind of the concept that's being sold to new lash artists right now, is they can go to school for a little bit, they can get a certification, they can get their own spot, they can make $100,000 a year. And like, that's a different episode, but that's specifically where I wanted to go with that, is like, you need capital, whether it's a job from one direction or another, in order to fund yourself to start and run your own business.
Exactly. And I think that, like you said, we're very much pushed or like encouraged to jump off and be solo immediately. And that doesn't work for everybody when you don't have the income coming in to support that, whether it be from clientele or a partner. Maybe you have a partner that has a phenomenal job that you can rely on. Maybe you have a 9 to 5 at the same time. Maybe you have 2 jobs. However that revenue comes in, or maybe you have a large savings. I don't know. But it doesn't have to necessarily come from clientele. It can come from other sources as well, just as long as you have that flexibility in your capital to be able to sustain that. So the next thing is your motivation and the time to do whatever it takes to market yourself and build clientele. So this one is huge. It's huge. And the more social media becomes prevalent in building clientele and how important it is to market yourself and build your own business. And truly, we wear so many hats as lash artists and business owners already, that being a social media guru and marketing yourself and being a content creator on top of that, it takes so much time. And some people, especially, if they're a mother, if they're a wife, if they have other things going on in their life, maybe you don't have the time or the desire to invest that much time, or have the motivation to invest that much time into marketing yourself, creating content, or building that clientele for yourself.
And right now, one of the things that I'm teaching is there's more than one way to market yourself and your business. And that requires extra time. It requires extra effort, even in addition to social media. So it's beautiful that we have this platform available to us and we don't have to, as somebody said in class the other day, we don't have to, take an ad out in the yellow pages for those of you who remember that. But we do need to be able to have the time to dedicate to marketing ourselves on social media and online, having a website, building relationships with people in real life, networking. Like, there is a lot that goes into building something that you are solely responsible for. And I don't want to say that and put you off and have you feel daunted at the idea of doing this. I want you to know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. And it certainly, I mean, I was posting literally, I think like 28 out of 30 days a month for 4 years. And that amount of time, the sheer amount of time that took me to create ideas with content, execute it, create high quality videos, get the equipment for high quality videos, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was no joke, a second job every week for me to do that. And not everybody, I loved it. I genuinely, absolutely loved it. And I've told you, like, I would lay in bed at night and that was my decompression time, was creating content, editing these videos, editing these photos. And that was genuinely enjoyable to me.
I could not believe you when you told me that. It was years ago, but I was baffled. But I'd like to clarify though, as an employee, I posted every day for 3.5 years straight, every day, like Monday through Monday, every day. And so just because one of these things is like owning your own business and the other perspective is an employee, we're not saying that being an employee is easier. We're saying that these things are different. And we're going to get to the employee bit in a minute.
Yep. Yeah. So then the next thing is again, going back to wearing multiple hats, being a business owner, we have our HR. Let's be real. We are not only a lash artist. We are not only a content creator. We also are our HR person. We are admin. We are our own bookkeepers. So if you aren't willing to do your behind the scenes and do your numbers, do your own books, do your own admin stuff and be your own HR representative, or willing to hire it out, then it might be a better avenue for you to go down the employee route if you aren't wanting to hire it out or do it yourself.
Yeah. And I'd like to just touch on a couple of things that we're definitely going to do in a different episode, but like, at the very bare minimum, you need to know what your expenses are. You need to know what your profits and losses are. You need to know what is coming in and what is going out and how much money you're actually making. And you need to be able to do your taxes and put money away for your taxes and make sure that the IRS isn't going to come knocking on your door a year or 2 or 5 later and go, hey, where's our money? And if that feels stressful or anxiety ridden to you, you need to hire somebody to be able to do that for you.
Absolutely. And being a small business owner is so much different than filing your taxes as a W-2 employee. And
oh, wow. Yeah, it is. I've done both.
It is incredibly different. And I would not, I always tell my CPA, I'm like, you're not allowed to retire. You're never allowed to retire ever, because I don't know what I would do without you. It is an entirely different way of bookkeeping and filing. So if you aren't able to hire that out or willing to hire that out, and you don't want to do it yourself, then a W-2 route or a commission artist situation may be a little bit easier for you.
Yeah. Okay, this wasn't in the plan, but would you maybe rapid fire at me a couple of really great reasons to be your own boss? Because I don't want it to come across as if we're just like warning you off about this.
Yeah.
Like, there are some really exciting and great benefits to being your own boss. One of them isn't necessarily having all of the time in the world to yourself and the financial freedom and the freedom of time that you think it is. That's a different subject, but Can you give us a few reasons why like this might be a phenomenal fit for somebody?
Yeah, I really like that you mentioned the time thing, because I think that would be the first one that people assume is like you have time freedom to use it however you want, and like you have all the time in the world because no one's giving you a schedule. And and being an employee, I mean, I was an employee before I ever became a business owner. I was always an employee, and I know how having that schedule given to you can feel inconveniencing at that time. However, let me tell you what, you really trade in your 9 to 5 to a 24/7.
Yes, you do. I'd like to mention one thing. Erin said earlier she jumped right into business ownership. She meant that she jumped right into business ownership as a lash artist in the beauty industry. It was only outside of the beauty industry that she was an employee before that, like in her high school years.
Yes. Inside of the lash industry. I've never been an employee for anybody else or worked for anybody else that way. I went straight into renting. So yeah, so I think that one off top thing that makes the most sense to me is not so much the quantity of time that you have, because that's certainly less than when you're your own boss. That's certainly actually less than what people assume. It's more so how you utilize that time. Now you have the ability to decide how the hours in your day are spent. And with that freedom, if you will, comes massive responsibility and accountability to your time, and where you don't get to necessarily clock in and out. Like I work from sun up to sundown the majority of the time, and even when I lay my head on my pillow at night, I'm still thinking of ideas, still thinking about my tasks, etc. So I think that, though, for me in my mind, one of my favorite things is being able to wake up every morning and arrange my schedule how I want it to be. It's not that I work less. In fact, I work more, but I get the ability to like schedule in a lunch with my friend that day, should I want to do something like that. Or if I want to take a vacation somewhere, I can just schedule that in and I don't have to get it approved.
Right. And you have the freedom to answer to yourself, both for your schedule and for the responsibilities that you take on each day, and for where you want to take your business. And I think that is one of the biggest attributes, is you creatively have the freedom to take your business whatever direction you want to, as long as you have the determination to do it.
Yes.
And the willingness to stick with it.
Yeah. Yep. I 100% agree with that. Okay. So when it comes to being an employee or a contractor, what do you feel like are some really good characteristics of that person?
So a person who would be a great employee or a contractor is somebody that wants to be able to leave work at work. They want to be able to walk away from work. They want to not think about what's going on at work, and they want to have their family time in the afternoon or evening. They want to have their family time on the weekends, or their friend time, or like, just their own time and their own ability. Now, I say this with like a huge caveat, because you have to have the personal boundaries to hold that up as an employee, because it is very easy to still take work home with you and work just as much as somebody who's running their own business if you have not established your own personal boundaries. And I have done both of these things. I have run boundaryless and, become incredibly mentally and emotionally exhausted. And I have also had times where I've had phenomenal boundaries, and I really, really enjoy my work-life balance, because I do get to go home to my family, or for myself, and just live my life. So that's one of the biggest attributes. If you want to be able to leave work at work, working for another company is the best way for you to be able to have the ability to do that.
And I think that there is an immense sense of balance there for some people. And, like if you listen to our last episode, we were talking about how that's something that Tress and I really strive for. It's something that we really both try our best to prioritize as much as we can. is maintaining balance within business and really trying to have that work-life balance. And for some people, that balance is maintained by being able to mentally clock off. And as an employee and a employer or a solopreneur, you also have to find boundaries within your schedule to be able to have your own mental clock off. Even though you're not responding and physically clocking off within a company and getting certain hours on a paycheck, you still have to find boundaries and respect boundaries for yourself and leave work at work sometimes, even though your hours are much different.
Yeah. So you still have to be responsible for yourself, even though technically somebody is professionally responsible for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, second, you like working with a team or you get lonely by yourself. If you are a major extrovert or an introvert who doesn't want to feel alone on a regular basis or doesn't like the feeling of being by yourself, you might want to be an employee. And this is something that is funny for me because I always say that I'm an introvert, even though if you look at me professionally, it looks like I'm an extrovert. I recharge alone, right? But I also do get lonely when I'm not working with a team. And some people really do function better as a team. And it's funny because like my son, he's 16, he's learning so much about himself right now. And we always thought that he was more of an introvert. And then he got into high school and he was like, Mom, I'm an extrovert. I want to be around people all the time.
Yeah.
And we were like, where did this come from? Like, this is incredible. So we were talking about the possibility of him graduating high school early. And he was like, I do not want to do that. Even if I had the option to, I want to be around people. And if that's you, man, working for yourself, that's a lot of time in your head.
Yeah. And to that point, on the opposite end for me, I worked my last studio, my last rental studio that I had before I built and opened Undefined Studios, I rented from a real estate office for 2.5 years, nearly 3 years before I started building and moved into Undefined Studios. And I was so incredibly happy not working in a salon environment and not working with anybody that knew anything about my industry at all. They were real estate agents and they were dudes, and I didn't speak to them. I walked in, I took my clients, and I walked out. I did my work, and I was incredibly happy with that quiet and self-paced day to day. And I chose rental for my independent contractors at Undefined Studios for them to have that same flexibility. And I didn't want to have employees or a salon for a number of reasons, but that was one of them. I wanted a creative space that anybody can come and do their work and do what they wanted to do and run their business with the same roof, but they didn't feel like they had to be in an environment that required anything of them. They could work in a team if they wanted to, and they could come and go as they wanted to as well if that worked for them.
And that's beautiful. And hopefully we see more collaborative spaces like that opening up, because I know that that's not how a lot of salon suites run.
Yeah.
So piggybacking off of the idea of liking to work with a team, there is a concept that I think has some misconceptions in the industry, and I'd like to clarify as we talk about this next topic. But if you do not want to be solely responsible for marketing yourself, you might want to be an employee or be part of a team. And what happens typically is a company or an owner and management will promote the business that you work for, therefore bringing potential clients in for you to retain and keep and move forward with. Now, the misconception that I think happens all the time, because I've talked to a lot of people who are quite a great deal upset about this, is that if you work for somebody, it is their responsibility to get you as their employee or contractor booked. And some people think that it is single-handedly the owner or management's responsibility to do that. And what I want to clarify is, going back to what I said first, is they are responsible for their business and they are responsible for promoting their business and bringing people in. But you would be the one responsible for bringing more people in, because you probably work on some sort of commission. So if you want a bigger paycheck, you can make sure that happens. And then pre-booking and retaining those clients that they bring in for you.
Yeah. And like the biggest distinction there is that they are promoting their business, not you individually. So a lot of times, say for example, that company is running ads. I'm just giving an example here. That company is running ads. They are going to be running those ads under the salon's name. So they're promoting the services that the salon offers, even if it might be individually localized to this salon is promoting lash extension services specifically. If there is multiple providers underneath that salon, multiple employees, then those clients can choose which contractor, which employee, which lash artist they end up going to. So the distinction there is that business is promoting their business with multiple potentially providers underneath that business, not you individually.
Right. So when I started as an employee in the beauty industry as an esthetician, I knew that if I wanted to make the amount of money I was capable of making, I was responsible to be the one to fill my books. Mm-hmm. I had the ability to go out and develop relationships and market myself, essentially, whether it was on social media or real life in person, handing out business cards, telling them what I did, inviting them to come in. I knew I was responsible for making as much money as possible, even though the business, yes, was responsible for making sure that they stay profitable, right? So if you want to be part of a team that will have marketing done for you, in addition to you getting your books filled, that is something that can be really beneficial to work at a salon or under somebody or with a team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction to be aware of if you are stepping into an employee title or a commission contractor title, that you are aware of those parameters with your employer. And so that distinction is made in your mind going into that relationship.
Yep. I've just talked to too many people who are upset that they're sitting around without clients and they're an employee, so they feel like it wasn't their responsibility. And I think it comes down to owning ourselves and taking responsibility for ourselves as people and humans.
Can I add another layer to that?
Yeah, please.
So the other layer to that is I have also heard the, not happy, maybe upsetness of when there is a salon that has multiple lash artists and one lash artist is more booked than the other lash artists. And the other lash artists are potentially losing clients to this one other lash artist, even though they're working under the same company, and there isn't, an equivalence between the booking of each lash artist. So going back to your point, Tress, of it's your responsibility to fill your books as much as the next person and have, your clientele returning to you and still doing your best work that you possibly can do to make sure that your clientele is satisfied, is happy, and their lashes are lasting. The quality of work that you are giving them is so high quality that they want to return to you specifically as that lash artist. There's a level there of customer service and client experience, even when you are an employee, that is still your level of responsibility there to return book clients to you. And this is a perfect example. My personal waxer works, in a really big chain. I don't know if I can name them. I don't know how that works. They work in a really big chain, and there is probably, no joke, maybe 10 to 15 waxers under one roof. Well, me as the client, I'm like, okay, they could all be the best lash artists, the best waxers, gracious, the best waxers underneath the sun. They could be all the best. How do I choose which waxer I'm going to be going to? Because I could go to any one of them and most likely be happy with majority of the result. So how am I choosing that? Well, I'm going to the same waxer every single time because of the experience that I get with her, the relationship that I've built with her, the work that she does. She knows my body. She knows what I want at this point, and I feel comfortable going back to her every time, versus if I would have gone to another waxer in that underneath the same roof, if I was not as happy with the result that I got, I was not as happy with the same service as my current wax artist, then I would return back to the other waxer. So there's a level of customer service and quality control that is your individual responsibility to fill your books as an employee as much as it is when you are independent.
I think that leads into one of my other points too. And that is one of the massive benefits of being an employee is being able to look around and form relationships with and learn from the people on the team around you who are more experienced. So if you're an employee, or maybe you're a renter and you're in a salon suite situation, but if you're looking around and you're seeing people that are far and away more booked than you, make it a study. Find out what they're doing that unfortunately you aren't doing. Find out what they're not doing that maybe you are doing.
And what an advantage that is.
It's such a huge advantage. And I just told Aaron earlier today, I would not be where I am in my career today if I had not had the employee experiences that I have had. Because having a team around me has always made me better. Now, having a team around me also has the opportunity to have conflict and disagreements and different opinions and needing to submit to authority when that authority is exercised. And those are all those can be really difficult things to deal with, but it's like choose your hard, right? Like one of these things is probably better for you at this point in your life, and one of them probably isn't. But one of the massive advantages to being an employee is the fact that you have an entire team of people to learn from. And I'm so thankful that I started learning from other people in this specific profession since I was 16. And I was an esthetician by the time I was 18, 19, and I had all of these other estheticians around me that I was able to look to and learn from. And even if they didn't mentor me or teach me personally, I got to watch how they interacted with people and what their clients looked like and sounded like when they were done with their service with them. And I was able to observe and react and respond in a way that helped me become a better service provider. And that is a benefit that you cannot get on your own as a solopreneur unless you put yourself in very strategic relationships, often paid, from somebody who is a mentor or like in a mastermind or like some sort of special networking group from people who are your peers that you get to learn from.
Very well said.
Thank you. Okay, I had just a couple of more. One of the things that is important to ask yourself, and this is something that I have asked myself repeatedly, is do you like doing organizational, administrative, or financial work? And if the answer is you would rather go scrape moss off a wet bridge, then you might want to be an employee. And I might sound like a broken record right now, but like it sounds like some kind of like funny, I don't know, it's not coming to me, but you might want to consider working for a team under somebody else's leadership if those things, organization, administration, finance, are not your strong suit. And I will be the first to raise my hand and say, hey, they're not my strong suit. And I actually don't even have a desire to learn them. I either need to hire somebody to do them for me when I want to work for myself, which I have off and on over the years, or I will work with a team where somebody else does that for me and they are really good at it and somehow happy doing it.
Yeah. And for me, it fascinates me. I was just talking to my mom about it the other day. I absolutely love reading ORS laws.
What a gift, dear Lord.
I do. I love it though. I feel like it gives me a wider variety and understanding of business in general and life in general and kind of how things work and function. And truly, it fascinates me. I absolutely love expanding my knowledge in that direction. However, I know that that is more rare in this industry than it is common, I suppose.
Yeah, you guys, Erin's brain is like an anomaly. She is just a genius at so many things. And
thank you.
It's hard for me to imagine that being entertaining, but I greatly admire it. It's just not a strong suit of mine.
Thank you. I think for me, it's like those things are very, very stressful. They are so, we are taught very much to fear taxes, to fear the IRS, to fear all of these consequential things, because they are big risk. They do require a lot of responsibility to manage, maintain, organize, and do in a timely manner. For me, I have always wanted to understand it better in order to subdue and subside my fear there. A lot of people avoid in their fearfulness because it's so overwhelming, it's so big, it is so consuming, and feels like it's not only boring, they may not understand it, even if they do spend the time to research and read through it. And that is totally okay. For me, that's what calms my mind down, is to, if I don't understand something and I'm stressing about it and I'm overwhelmed about it, for me, it helps to calm my nerves by understanding it. So I will research it to the nth degree until I can essentially present it to somebody like in a deck, because that's just that's how I process, and that's not everybody's processing way.
Yeah. Good job, you. Okay. Almost there. One of the other things that might give you a clue as to wanting to be part of a team, or maybe even I can use the word needing to be part of a team or an employee for a period of time before going out on your own and doing your own thing, is if you don't have any experience in leadership or management, and if you don't have any training in leadership or management. Because guys, we do not come out of the womb knowing how to lead. Great leaders are made, they're not born. I truly believe that. And leadership is a skill, just like learning how to do your craft is a skill. And one of the things that I have heard from so many business owners that I've either talked to or coach or mentor, and it's the fact that they were not a good leader or an experienced leader before bringing on employees or renters of their own. And it's one of their biggest, like, self-proclaimed missteps, because now they are managing and leading people and they're having how to figure out how to do it on the way. And so if you don't have experience in that yet, learning and researching or taking classes or being an assistant manager or a manager in a spa or salon where you actually still have other management over you helping to guide you through that is absolutely vital. Because I think I know more salon owners that have closed their doors or are considering closing their doors because they know that they're not the leader they need to be to keep it open right now.
Yeah, that's it's a big one.
It is. And there's no, I said this before, but there's no shame in it. There's no shame in coming out of beauty school, or even if you came out of beauty school, became an owner or a solopreneur and became a salon owner, and you realize that it's not right for you right now. That is not a failure. Look what you created out of almost nothing when you were ill-equipped for it. Like, can you imagine if you came back to a place of learning what you could do the next go around when you know the things that you need to equip yourself with now. That's powerful information.
Yeah. And like, there's the argument to be made that with being a good leader and with being able to teach, like being able to lead a team and answer questions and be someone that can not only lead a team by example, but also lead a team should they need something, they can come to you and get the answers to their questions. There's wisdom in that. There's experience in that. And there's the argument to be made that learning as an employee first before stepping into the ownership realm where you potentially could be leading other people, that is a great way to gain experience and gain that wisdom. And it doesn't have to be the hard route. Sometimes being a solopreneur, a renter, going out on your own first, you're going to learn a lot harder lessons in a lot harder ways. And sometimes it's not always the easiest route that you could have learned that lesson.
But it might be faster.
It could be faster, it could be harder, and it could be more painful to your to your mental state.
Yeah.
At the time, it could be scarring sometimes, and it could be just as valuable. It's just a different way of learning the same lesson. And so there's that argument to be made, and that's a bit of self-reflection there to distinguish your character and how you learn and your learning style in general. And for me, I have always been the person that I have to learn the hardest way possible. That's just, unfortunately, the way that I was made. And so doing it in a way where I'm learning it from somebody else's experience, that's not my learning style. That's not how I would receive that information, by like hearing the advice from somebody else without me living it first. And for some people that works better, and it's a much easier, smoother transition into learning a lesson. And there's that argument to be made. So I think it just comes down to knowing yourself and your learning style there.
Yeah. So those were all of my main points. And I think what's really important to come back to is the fact that there are pros and cons to both of these things. Both can be incredibly painful. Both can have seasons of growth that you don't want to have to go through. And honestly, hopefully they do, because that's how we become the person that we're becoming, right? Both have major benefits. If you could take away one thing from today listening to this, my hope is that neither one of these things are better than the other, but that you can understand that one of these things might be better than the other for you personally. We live in a world where the CEO and the hustler and the boss are these things that are so glorified, but not everybody can be the CEO and the boss, or we wouldn't have anybody to work with them. Everybody holds a different role, and there are different things that you have strengths in that very well could lend themselves to a team, and you might be able to do greater things as a team. You might be able to impact the world in a greater way as a team than you would on your own. And I just want everybody to know that both of these things are a valid option, and they're both beautiful. And I personally think that after this period of time that we're going through, we are going to see salons come back, and we are going to see people craving this interaction and this connection. And maybe we'll see more of what you're doing, Erin, because it's really the best of both worlds. And she didn't ask me to plug Undefined, but what Erin's doing is she's creating that safe place for people to be their own boss and be part of a team. And there aren't a lot of places like that right now. So maybe that's the future. Maybe that's what's coming.
Yeah. And I think too, I want to just add in there, we are very much in the state in the lash industry where success means becoming a salon owner, a product brand owner, or an educator. And I just want to say, like, it is perfectly okay if you want to remain an employee for forever, if you want to remain a solo lash artist forever, if you want to have these goals of being a brand owner, if you want to own a salon, if you want to become an educator, that's okay too. And being an employee or being on your own, you can have your end result, your end goal, you can get there from meeting yourself where you are right now, and where you are right now doesn't have to be the end goal. Sometimes it's better and easier to take that 1% step, one at a time at a consistent pace to get yourself to that end goal. We talked about this in the last episode. Than it is to try to jump into the deep end without anything to back you first, because that could be so much more overwhelming and scarier and hold you back from reaching that end goal in the same amount of time. So there is a place for everybody, and right now doesn't have to be the time that you are at your absolute end goal. You can start where you are now and move forward from there, and it's going to look different for everybody, and everybody's journey is unique for that reason. And that's why we're here having this conversation, is because we've walked different journeys, yet here we are on the same podcast, best friends, sitting down doing the same thing. We took such different roads and such different routes, yet we're sitting in the same place right now.
Yeah, and we have different strengths.
Mm-hmm. Very much, yes.
And that's great. And it's I guess what forms strength within the industry is because not everybody can be amazing at the same thing.
Yeah.
Or we wouldn't have balance in it. We wouldn't have the diversity in it. We wouldn't have the creativity in it or the innovation that we have, because everybody is better at something. Then that's not the way that I want to put that.
And people complement each other differently.
Yes.
There are different complementary strengths. And when you can recognize your own and find people that complement your weaknesses, or you can complement their weaknesses with your strengths, a magic happens. And that's when like that powerful blend ends up evolving into massive teams and massive companies, massive whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. It compiles, but that's the beauty of each individual person, having each individual's strengths and weaknesses. Weaknesses don't mean anything bad. It's just something that somebody else can fill that for you with their strengths. It's beautiful.
It is. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really, really good note to end on.
I agree. This was a really good episode.
Thanks for being here for it, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, and we will see you on the next episode.